Hi, my name's DonGabor, and I've been a Learning Annex teacher for more than 25 years. And I can tell you, it is the #1 most important thing I've ever done that has helped me become an author, a professional speaker, and consultant. If you teach a class for the Learning Annex, maybe the same will happen for you. In this session, I'm going to tell you about how to deal with students, particularly some of those folks when they come in late, or they're talkers, or they just don't want to participate. When people walk into your class late, they may be thinking, oh, you're going to wait for me to start the class, but of course you're not going to do that. So what you will have to do is to bring them up to speed. You'll have to settle them into a seat quickly, or wherever it is that you're holding the class. If it's outside and you're participating in some kind of outdoor activity, you want to get them involved right away. At the same time, you don't want to take too much attention away from the class that is there on time and doing whatever it is that you're asking them to do, or you're giving them the information. Sometimes you'll have students who like to talk. Now, talkers in a class can be good if they're talking about what you're talking about and at the right time, but they can be a huge distraction for you and for other students. You don't want to let talkers influence how your classes are being presented and how their other students are accepting your information. So the simplest way to handle a talker is to say, excuse me please, but could you keep your side conversations for the break or after the class? Another technique that I use with talkers is I simply ask that person a question. So I redirect their focus off of one of their classmates or the other people in the class to me. That way I keep the attention always focused up on the front of the room. Sometimes people, when they take a class, they're a little shy. They may not really want to become too involved in what you're asking them to do. These are called non-participants. And sometimes non-participating is okay, and sometimes it can be a distraction. The trick here is you need to find a balance of encouraging people to participate, but not pushing them so hard that it kind of makes them feel really uncomfortable. Now, where that line is, I'm not really sure, and that's something for you as a teacher for the Learning Annex that you have to kind of decide for yourself. But here's a technique that I use. I gently push a person to try something, or I give them something easy to do in my workshop. For example, if I'm asking people for topics of discussion when they go into a networking class, and I want one topic from each person at a table, and the person doesn't say anything, I might ask that person, well, why don't you share with the person next to you something that you enjoy talking about? And in that way, it makes it just a little bit easier for that person to become a participant. What you want to make people feel is comfortable in your class. Now, sometimes you get students who are knowledgeable in your subject area, and they want everyone in the class to know it, especially you. And what they'll do is they may start to pontificate about a particular topic that you're teaching about, or even go off topic. You can't let that happen. Remember, when you're a teacher for the Learning Annex, part of your role, part of your credibility is for you to be able to manage the class and control the class. It's your class, and your students want you to manage what goes on in it. If a know-it-all or somebody who is arguing with you, or a competitor is trying to make you on the defensive, or make you support certain parts of what you're saying off your subject or even on your subject, you need to handle that in a way that's polite but firm. Sometimes, if it gets a little bit too much for you, you could say, excuse me for a moment, and you give the rest of the students a short exercise, and you go to the person and you quietly ask him or her to please not try to address some of these issues in the class. Now, this is an extreme. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you do have to take a firm control over people who are trying to attack or undermine your credibility as a teacher for the Learning Annex. Like I said, it doesn't happen often, but you want to have the confidence and the ability and the know-how to handle it when it does. Speaking of handling things when they happen, sometimes we have unexpected situations that come up when you're teaching a class. And it could be just about anything, but it usually revolves around noise, the lights going off, the heat comes on, or there's no heat at all, or some other room problem. Let me tell you a short story about what happened to me in one of my first Learning Annex classes. I was teaching a guitar class in New York City, and it was the very first class of a 4-class session. Went upstairs into this office and with all the chairs and the students are around and we're tuning up the guitars, and all of a sudden I hear these people screaming at the tops of their lungs, rah, just screaming. I thought, my goodness, what's going on? So I told the people, just continue what you're doing, and I went outside and I went into the room next door. You know, I mean, it sounded like somebody was, something was going on that wasn't good. But it was another class. It was a primal scream class, if you remember those old days when people screamed to feel better. So I said to the instructor, I said, I understand this is a screaming class, but could you please scream a little softer, because I'm teaching a guitar class. So once again, the responsibility of the teacher and your responsibility as a teacher for the Learning Annex is to your students, to create a learning environment that is comfortable, that is conducive to learning, and that has things around in your room that are under your control. One more point. Sometimes, it's very rare, but sometimes it does happen where there is some kind of an emergency in your class, and you do really need to be prepared for it. Now, depending on where you're holding your class and the type of class that you're teaching. For example, if you are teaching, let's go back to the cooking class, and somebody cuts their finger, well, you better have a first aid kit there. If you don't, you're going to have a little bit of a mess in your class. So more often than not, things like that don't happen. If you're doing a physical kind of class, an outdoor sports type of class, again, a first aid kit might be something to have along with you. If you're in any kind of a hiking class, or you're going to anything where there's any physical danger, you want to be prepared for anything that might go wrong. They're rare, but being prepared is part of being a professional in terms of being a teacher. And being prepared is something that gives you and the students confidence that you are running a professional and a competent workshop or class. And that's something that the Learning Annex takes pride in, and I know you will take pride in too as a teacher. So remember, be ready for those latecomers, the talkers, the people who don't want to get involved. You got to give them a little bit of an encouragement. Some of the people that are in your class that are maybe trying to undermine your credibility, rare, but it does happen. Be ready for them. Those noise problems and lights, be ready. If you need a flashlight, you got to know where it is. And finally, if there's any safety issues involved with your class, even the most remote, be prepared. And that's it for today. I'll see you next time.